Hey everyone, I'm Sean.
I'm Leo.
And I'm JD.
And welcome to Review Month.
What we're going to be doing for Review Month in December is all of the Arnolds are going to be reviewing games that they love,
The games that we hate.
And the games that we're passionate about.
So join us every single day
at 4 PM
GMT time
to see what games we loved in 2014.
I've known beauty. I've known pain. I've known love. I've known loss. I've known victory, honor, sacrifice. And now, after all these centuries, I'll finally know the end.
Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII. Man, this game is so bad. I don't even know where to begin. I really don't even know where to begin. I am a fool. I love the Final Fantasy franchise way too much to be putting up with bad games like this. What can I say about Lightning Returns? Nothing I really want to say. Lightning Returns is a RPG, almost like an action RPG by the way they're trying to change this formula, and you take control of a character called Lightning and you have 13 days before the world is going to end. Now along that time you need to gather souls to take towards a brand new world which is going to be made by God. Now if that hasn't interested you, the main of souls from the game are characters from the previous Final Fantasy XIII games, FF13 and FF13-2. And so the design of the game is to bring closure to those two previous games and its character, which has been incredibly popular since at least 2006. However, it doesn't really deliver on that closure. It doesn't really deliver in a satisfying way which makes you think, wow, I have been with this franchise for almost a decade now, and I have enjoyed it. Now, before I even go into a bit more about this game, just so you know a little about me, my name is Sean, and I love RPGs. I grew up on RPGs. RPGs, particularly of the Final Fantasy variety, were, to me at least, games of great value, because you would be buying this game and I didn't have much money, and when you played this game, it would take you hours to beat, and you would get an incredible story as a reward for your investment of time. Now, in 2006, Final Fantasy XIII was announced, and I think it came out in roughly 2009. And when the first game came out, it was absolutely gorgeous. It wasn't up to the standard story-wise writing of the usual Final Fantasy games, but it looks amazing. And I think the best way to put it, without going into too much detail, is if it wasn't actually called Final Fantasy and didn't have these high expectations from its fan base of millions of people around the world, it would have been rated as a very, very good game. But there are such high expectations of the Final Fantasy brand nowadays that you almost can't satisfy everyone, and I guess myself is included in that. Then came Final Fantasy XIII-2, which was a direct sequel, and Final Fantasy isn't usually known for direct sequels, Usually they make a new game every time so that it freshens it up, and if you didn't like the last game, you could play a new one and get some enjoyment out of a brand new fresh start. But they wanted to keep the same assets, not spend so much money, and they just reused the old assets again and again to make a new game. Final Fantasy XIII 2 wasn't very enjoyable to me. I actually did not really like the game. I thought it was more like a chore, but I played it all and beat almost everything in the game. So when I got to Final Fantasy XIII, Lightning Returns, I wasn't very hopeful for the game, and unfortunately it didn't do much to change that. The game has changed so much from what we know and love about a Final Fantasy game, in that it tried to be an open world action RPG, but Final Fantasy isn't really designed to live in an open world action RPG formula. It's designed to have a structured narrative and for you to follow that path. Now, I like open world games. I'm a very big fan of games like Dark Souls, where you can go off into different directions, or Skyrim. But this game tries to do too much with too little, and the game's narrative just doesn't really translate well. When I played the game, the story just wasn't very interesting. That was partly because of a gameplay element. In this game, you are restricted by time, so you have to do certain jobs by a certain time. Now, if you run out of time, you have to wait a whole day in the game to be able to carry on the story. So you could be in the middle of the mission, and this happened to me, and then miss the timing or take too long, or choose to say, hey, I want to explore for a bit, and then just be told, oh, hey, no, you've taken too long, you have to stop playing and not enjoy this, enjoy your story or your time for another half an hour. And it's just not great. It's not very interesting to do or play that game. Now, one of the highlights of the Final Fantasy series is, of course, the combat system. And in the Final Fantasy XIII game, they tried to implement the job system, which we all know and love, but instead of having it as jobs, they have it as schemata, which are clothes. And you can change your schemata within battle to change Lightning's role. And it's an okay system, but there really doesn't feel like there's much depth to it. Rather than having a job which you level up, every clothing that you get gets 4 moves, and then it's either good or it's bad, and you can change it. You can level them up a little bit, but if you don't, then it's just not very interesting to play with. The characters are incredibly inconsistent. They have kept the same main characters along from the first game, but they're just not, they're treated differently. So characters like Lightning have been developed as a soldier in the first game, then Lightning as the warrior goddess in the second game, now Lightning as a savior in the third game. She's changed. As time has moved on with the game and time has moved on for us, she's changed as a character. She's grown more. However, then you get characters like Sars, who was one of my favourite characters, who was really the comical, lovable guy. His story hasn't changed. In the first game, his story was that he had to go and find his son and save him. In the second game, he lost his son, so he had to go and find him. In the third game, he lost his son, so he had to go and find him again. It's lazy. It's not interesting at all. They don't treat all their characters fairly. Some of them, they shove in your face and make you want to be interested in, like Snow. But then there are other characters who haven't changed at all, and yet you want us to believe that this has been, what, 500 years into the future? And this character hasn't changed, and it's not just him too. There are other characters in the game who are exactly the same, whether there are reasons in the story or not. Characters aside, actually no, talking about Lightning's character development I also don't like. As I said, in the first game, all she was just a normal soldier, and she wasn't an elite soldier. She was on the Guardian Corps, which is pretty much the equivalent of your local police officer. Now, going from your local police officer is fine, I understand that, it's an interesting character. But then going from Final Fantasy XIII to XIII-2, where your soldier has gone to becoming the chosen warrior of a goddess, is a bit jarring. It's like, why did the goddess pick this one person if she's not even that good? But I can believe it's a video game, whatever. But then she's gone from being a soldier of a god to being the saviour, which I best describe as basically Jesus Christ. She has been chosen by God to take people's souls and take them to a brand new world, to save them. it's just distasteful. I haven't got a problem with, oh, I'm not very religious and I haven't got a problem on that level, but it's just like this character doesn't fit that role. It doesn't match up. This is a character who isn't actually very interesting to play as, but it's okay because she's a soldier, she's quite reserved. So for her to then become the saviour of the masses, the saviour of the world, it just doesn't work. It really doesn't. And what's really disappointing is that she's already been put in a similar role to this before on the PSP in a game called Final Fantasy Dissidia, where the soldiers of the Final Fantasy series, or the heroes I should say, were chosen to become soldiers for the god. And Lightning is one of my favourite characters in that game because she's just a normal person. But when they tried to make her some kind of holy shining light of an example to the rest of the world, it just doesn't work. Look, it's too far-fetched for me. The story isn't interesting for the game, it's really quite boring. The side quests are uninteresting, it's very boring to do. It doesn't really make you want to find out more about the characters. And speaking of which, the characters who aren't in the main cast are very lazily made. All they did was they took a basic model and slapped on some random equipment or accessories on them and made a new character. You're going to see the same man walking around again and again and again. You're going to see the same little girl walking around again and again and again. And all that will be different about them is that they're wearing different clothes. It's lazy. For a company like Square Enix, which is known for its high budget games, of making the best games of the PS2 era, of the PS1 era, of the Super Nintendo era, of the Nintendo era, for them to do something as lazy as this is just disgusting. I absolutely hated looking at it. And even the way they program the characters, they tried to make this open world, yet they didn't make the characters do anything. The characters literally, or the NPCs, literally just walk around randomly. They walk around randomly so badly that even when you're in a cutscene, you'll see them bumping into each other, walking as if though they're trying to make out. It's terrible. The game is terrible. It's so bad I never even wanted to finish it. I didn't want to put myself through. And I was just questioning myself, why am I going through the hassle of playing a game which just isn't getting much better for me when I could be playing something better with my time. So, thank you very much for listening to my rant on Lightning Returns. It is not a game I love from this year. It's a game I absolutely hated, and one of the worst games I've played of all time. Okay, thanks, bye.